Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Moving on, Chairman Russell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the Colonel and everybody from the Highway Patrol for being here and all the things that you do for Tennessee for keeping us safe. And just want to touch on these DUI arrests and talk about over-the-counter medication and how that shows up on the TBI toxicology report.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you asking the question, Chairman, and I know it's been highly publicized, and I'll start with saying no trooper wants to arrest somebody who's not committed a crime, period. Our goal, and I'll just keep reiterating, is safety and roadway safety and the safety of Tennesseans and those traveling through the state. There's a lot of things that go into a DUI arrest. It's not as simple we stop you for speeding and go, I think I smell something, and throw you in jail. It starts at vehicle behavior and how people are driving. Sometimes they crash a car in an area they shouldn't, that people don't crash. You know, we work a lot of crashes. We know there are areas in our county that are just problem roads and areas, and we know there's some straightaways that didn't make any sense, either medical condition or, you know, distraction or impairment. So we start there. Then we go up and we see lots of different things, slurred speech. We smell alcohol. We smell certain drugs. And that's all just part of a case that goes to a DUI arrest. There are a myriad of things that people take and use, and in combination with each other, polydrug use. So they might be drinking a couple beers, taking an over-the-counter allergy medication, an over-the-counter the sleep aid. We stop you, or you crash your vehicle. We get all these signs of impairment. We do all the testing and make the call that you are in fact impaired. Which is about the second or third leading cause of fatal crashes in Tennessee, roughly 20. It ranges. It's been as low as 16% and as high as 25% in the last decade of all fatal crashes involve an impaired driver. So, but if you drink those 2 beers, take those 2 over-the-counter medications that do cause impairment, certainly in combination. A drowsy driver is an impaired driver. That's, you know, there's lots of different, it's not just what everybody thinks of, like methamphetamine or really hard drugs or drinking a whole bottle of whiskey. It's not just that. It's, and the most severe drunk people usually don't make it very far down the road. The least severe, those people right on the legal limit, are the people who think they're invincible and think they're fine and cause probably the majority of crashes. So it is a difficult thing, arresting an impaired driver, especially those that are close. And so, but those 3 things that will show all the signs of impairment and make someone impaired, if it takes a trooper an hour to get to the, you know, if they're in a rural area, an hour to get to the hospital where a blood draw is done, and it takes a little bit of time because somebody is, you know, resisting to something. I don't mean like fighting us, but just being very difficult. A lot of impaired people are difficult. 2 of those things aren't tested for, over-the-counter drugs, and the 2 beers might be out of their system. I mean, alcohol leaves your system almost as fast as anything. So, because a lot of talk has been said about sober drivers, and I don't, it's not accurate statement. These are people whose testing came back 0 for whatever reason. But I can tell you, we're doing a deep dive. We don't have anything to hide, and we are working on a system where in the future, it's not going to take us very long to tell you every 0-0 case. We've always done reviews of 0-0 cases at a district office level. So we have 8 districts across the state. I know you all know that. They do a review. If there's training that needs to be done, they get training done. If a trooper does something egregious, then we will open up a disciplinary number. I know you know what that is, Chairman, sorry. We'll open up a disciplinary case, and we will punish a trooper. We haven't found, there isn't a trooper taking someone to jail for DUI that they don't think is impaired. We don't have that. There's no egregious offense, because the news sort of is said that, and that's not accurate. I'm sure, yeah, we can make some mistakes, but I'll say this. Of the cases involving THP, there was 190. There was one clerical error in TBI's report. It was actually 189. 38 of those were involved in fatal crashes, and our policy as part of our investigation of a fatal crash is to get blood from everybody in a vehicle. No one was charged in a crime I said 38, 28, sorry. Nobody was charged with DUI. So we're down to 161 now of the 189, the correct number. 75 people in those 161 admitted to some form of drug or alcohol use or combination of. Some of the people admitted to, being at Bonnaroo all week, not sleeping, using mushrooms. You had others using spice, inhalant use, methamphetamines, multiple prescription drugs at the same time, codeine, marijuana, and other things purchased at gas stations and some of these vape shops that they believe were illegal, admitted to all these. And then you also had another 69, roughly, people who pled guilty or were convicted of DUI of those numbers. So it's been portrayed that every one of those people was sober and was just driving down the road minding their business. That's not correct. It's not being portrayed correctly. And then some of their sources are former troopers that we terminated for getting drunk and crashing their car off duty. And the other source is somebody who conspired to get their nephew out of a DUI, and he was a .269, like 3+ times the legal limit. So clearly I'm a little passionate about it. Our people are working so hard and so diligently. And if we make a mistake, we're going to make it right. I'm working with my counterparts, you mentioned the colonel in North Carolina and others, to come up with a better way to do that. If we find that a trooper has done something wrong, we're going to go to the district attorney ourselves, and we're going to work to, but we're working on a system. We don't have it all figured out yet, so don't, quote me to everything, but we're going to do better. We're going to be more transparent. We don't have anything to hide.
And just to clarify, nighttime cold medicine can make somebody impaired and not be identified on a TBI toxicology report.
I don't want to speak to everything TBI because I don't know everything, but correct. I don't know of an over-the-counter, and I could be wrong. I don't know of an over-the-counter drug, cold medicines, allergy, sleep aids, that are tested for.
You and I had the same instructor for a DUI week at THP, and I would say that's probably some of the best DUI training available, wouldn't you?
Yes, sir, I would.
And sometimes accountability sometimes gets or could get mistaken for a quota because you'd want your officers out here making arrests. Is that true?
It is, and I've said it to this committee, I know, and other, we don't have a quota on DIs. We want to arrest every impaired driver, but we don't come anywhere close to arresting every impaired driver.
And would you touch on Blue Team and how the early warning system works?
Yes, so Blue Team is and obviously chairman being a former trooper and in our internal affairs division. Blue Team is our system we track everything a trooper does. If they're involved in a pursuit, that's an investigation. If they're involved in a use of force, that's an investigation. If they crash their vehicle, it's an investigation. If any citizen complains to us about rudeness, wrongdoing, anything, and we've had no one call in and make a complaint about a DUI arrest, period. But we do an investigation, a thorough investigation. And the early alert system is if the same member is having 2 pursuits and 2 uses of force and a citizen complaint, we get an alert that says, hey, Trooper Russell, I don't want to say Smith because we got a lot of Smiths. Trooper Russell, you might need to look at something's going on there. He's been involved in too many things, potentially. That's the early alert system.
It sounds like that you're moving into making an alert for multiple negative results, from what I understand. I hope that you utilize this blue team. It costs the state a lot of money, and I think that would be the easiest way. But we appreciate the work you do, and thank you, every trooper on the road. So
Yes,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The clock is ticking, members, but we still have some folks on the list. We'll try to get to all of you. And up next is Representative Bain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is more broadly directed, I think, at Graham, because you had outlined the bills that you are working on in the Department of Homeland and Safety. But for the committee members, this is legislation that expands state power by authorizing a statewide law enforcement entity with arrest authority, broad investigative discretion, and permanent secrecy over its records. And the combination of those should give this committee a deep pause. Tennessee already has multiple agencies responsible for public safety, criminal investigations, and counterterrorism, as you all know. This bill not only expands that authority, but it removes the visibility and expands a police function that can operate across the entire state, investigate crimes well beyond terrorism, and so do that largely outside the reach of what the public can access. So my questions today are about scope and limits and accountability, because once this authority is granted, it's not going to be easy to undo. So my first question is exactly what is being created. Is this legislation creating a new law enforcement entity with statewide arrest powers, or is it materially expanding an existing one that you already have? My second question is with regard to civil liberties. Could this office investigate protests, advocacy groups, or community organizations under the bill's public safety or Homeland language and definitions? And then 3, will the officers assist federal law enforcement agencies, including immigration enforcement, and under what authority? Thank you.
So I believe what you're referring to is a couple of administration bills that have been filed for this year. I'm happy to talk about legislation that has yet to go through the body. So we have an Office of Homeland Security, and so historically these were created after the Office of Homeland Security was created after 9/11, and so really the initial goal of the Office of Homeland Security was to protect the homeland from terrorist threats. And so we have been operating under an executive order dating back to, I think, 2003 under maybe the Bredesen administration. There is no codification into state law. After the Covenant shooting, there was the legislature funded a Homeland agent, at least one in every county. And so really Homeland's scope has expanded outside of just protecting the homeland, which is what is in that executive order. And so what we're looking to do is codify what we are already doing. There is no expansion of what we are already doing. We're just making sure the legal framework is there to do what we are already doing rather than relying on executive orders dating back to the early 2000s. In terms of the records, again, part of Homeland is protecting the homeland and from terroristic threats, and we have lots of information that is sensitive, and doing a legal review because we don't necessarily have the codification. There's some questions as to whether or not that information is public or not. And so really looking to make sure that anything that's deemed sensitive or critical to protecting the homeland is not something that a bad actor could get their hands on. So, and I appreciate the question and happy to talk more as this bill goes throughout the legislative process. But that's the general idea.
We're almost a year out from what happened in Nashville last May, where the Highway Patrol operated in an unprecedented capacity with ICE and pulled over 300 of our neighbors. And you didn't mention immigration at all during your summary of activity, but I think what bothered me most, I mean, besides my constituents being pulled out of their cars and witnessing that, was that the legislature had no idea that that was happening, and that either, you know, and I understand that there's litigation that is ongoing, but really heartbreaking that, and I mean, what felt almost illegal activity happening under our noses without us knowing, because, you know, we didn't know that you had ongoing negotiations to be operating with this 287G agreement. And so I just, your general thoughts about that. I understand there's ongoing litigation, but it just, as a legislator who represents 60,000 people, the fact that our agencies are operating in a rogue capacity should be terrifying to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know that it feels that way, and for your constituents, we weren't rogue. We had 9 troopers, and we made probable cause traffic stops. It is under litigation, so I'll say, but we made probable cause traffic stops with an ICE agent in our car. They weren't allowed to get out of the car until we went up and determined that this is something more than a traffic stop. So we really tried to, because we don't want, I live in this community. I spent half my life in Nashville and Williamson County after my parents' divorce. So we're citizens of these communities too. We have friends. We're not interested in people that are hardworking. We're interested in people that commit crimes and are making Tennessee an unsafe place. That doesn't mean there isn't going to be, somebody that isn't a serious criminal that gets, because at the end of the day, they are in the country illegally. But that's not our goal, is to go get every hardworking person. But it does happen. We make probable cause traffic stops. We made it that week for 7 days with 9 troopers. That's it. And we had an agent in the car. But that's it. So it wasn't rogue. They weren't with us. They're not allowed to walk up. It's our traffic stop. We're in control. We really controlled that as well as we could. And we learned a little bit along the way during that week. Yes, ma'am.
Next up is Chairman Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to our Department of Safety team, thank you very much for the work that you do. I'm listening to the conversation about impaired drivers, and I'm recollecting back to a story from my hometown, and our Irish friends have joined us in the gallery, and I'm not sure if I should say this about my hometown, but there was a guy who either sniffed, or consumed 13 cans of whipped cream while sitting at a Dollar General store. And he was in no position to drive after that. Thankfully, he was stopped before he got behind his car by local police, but our trooper friends had been warned that if this guy gets in the car, we need your help. So thank you very much for that. I want to reiterate the probable cause traffic stops. I think you've mentioned that at least a half a dozen times in your comments, and I want to thank you for the work that you've done in keeping our citizens safe. I truly appreciate that. It's all hands on deck with local, state, federal law enforcement. We're not perfect. There are some mistakes that come up, and those mistakes get magnified. And our job as lawmakers and your job in law enforcement is to be right 100% of the time. And it's a challenge to do that. It's a challenge for all of us to do that. And I want to thank you for that goal and striving to get to that 100% level. I would hate to have to think that I had to get everything right every moment of the day. Ask my 14-year-old daughter. She'll tell you how wrong I am on many occasions. But I thank you for the effort and that goal that you bring to keep our citizens safe. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to also circle back and thank the Colonel for telling us, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story. I don't consume much news anymore after spending a professional lifetime in news and media, and I can spot a biased story from a mile away, and I knew there was more to the story. Thank you for digging deep and for letting these members in this committee realize that, understand that the media doesn't always tell us everything to it, and by omission, well, I'll stop there. But I do appreciate what you do. I'm reminded in my own community of how many troopers I have. I have several, by the way, and since we've had this influx of troopers into Tennessee, I see troopers every day in my district. I have to be careful how I drive. But I've gotten to know a lot of them. And they're our neighbors. Their kids are in our schools. They're on the basketball team, and they go to our churches, and they visit our restaurant. They're members of our community. The ones I know, and I believe that's statewide. And they love Tennessee. They love the communities they live in. And I think we run the risk sometimes of trying to vilify sometimes when a honest mistake may have been made, or a story is blown out of proportion. And so I think it's important that we don't rush to judgment, that we do get all the facts, and I appreciate you bringing clarity to that issue today on the DUIs. We have another person on the list, Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I want to say thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. I really appreciate it. One of the things that I think a lot of times we forget is that if someone's interested in altering their mental state, they'll sniff paint, they'll do glue, and whipped cream. There's a lot of people do bath salts. And there's not a test for every single thing that is the newly created synthetic drug or all of the analogs of different things. And so it's important that we rely upon you as a skilled, trained law enforcement official to recognize those behavioral patterns of impairment. So thank you very much for doing that. But now, with that said, there are a lot of trends with regard to different sort of things with drones and our flock cameras and different types of technologies that are useful to you to assist you in your law enforcement capabilities. Are there anything on the horizon or anything that you're looking towards to try to help elevate that?
That's a great question. Drugs and drug testing, there's so much technology out there and so many different things. And we try to talk to our counterparts across the country and what are some of the best solutions. I'll always say, and you've heard me say it, that the best, because we are a proactive law enforcement agency in traffic. And really, there's very few. Some of the chiefs back here and sheriffs have some traffic units to do little amounts, but we are the only one in every county that's worried about road safety. So nothing really beats a police officer, a trooper out there stopping cars to deter, because most everything sort of is how you catch people after the fact. In some cases, speed cameras and things like that. But our laws prevent speed cameras from being super effective, and they probably shouldn't be. It's a misdemeanor, not in the presence of law enforcement. But there are devices, and you talked about a company, but license plate readers are a great tool, and they don't run license plates. I always like to tell people they don't run a license plate and say, oh, that's Representative Davis's driving that car. It says it compares that license plate to a known list of whether it's a wanted person or somebody who's committed murder, or somebody on a terrorist watch list. That's what a reader does. So those are good devices to help force multiply troopers.
Thank you. On a personal note, I'm glad to see Chief Gibson from Cleveland, good friend of mine and works in my area. Good to have you with us today. Next on the list, Chairman Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you, I don't know if you have the data, I think it would help to have it, but could you find out, or if you already know, if Tennessee municipalities and counties are using the same methods and equipment both in the field and labs to check the DUI to see if their percentages are about the same as what you're running into? They may have different procedures or testing than you, but it'd be interesting to see what that data is.
Yes. I'll give you some anecdotal. We'll get the answers, all that, Representative, but anecdotally, most use the TBI crime lab. There are agencies like Metropolitan National Police Department that has their own crime lab, and I'm sure there are some that probably, that's me anecdotally, but we can help come up with some of that data.
Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you. That completes my list. Colonel, thank you and your team for being with us today. Appreciate you sitting there and taking the hard questions. And I'm going to ask Mr. Tudor if he would follow up with Representative Pearson, make sure he gets his real ID. And appreciate you guys coming today. And our Irish friends are with us. They came in late. I mentioned them earlier. If you just raise your hand. We're so glad to have these friends from Ireland. Would you give them a hand? Any other questions or suggestions from the committee? Representative Sherrill.
Thank you, Chairman. I come in late, but I would like to say
He's a
to all of our
slacker.
law enforcement, I do appreciate everyone, but I would like to recognize we have our McMinnville Police Department with us back there. If you would raise your hand and make them welcome, please. Thank you.
I just appreciate the department. Thank you, Department of Safety and Colonel, and thank you, members. It's always good to have a good understanding, and I think we've heard some good things here today and added clarity to what we needed to hear. Thank you so much. The chair will entertain a motion. So moved. Hold on just a second. Chairman Russell has got something else to say.
Thank you. Just welcome Public Safety Director Don Watts here today. So,
Oh.
thank you.
Welcome. And Speaker Marsh.
I'd like to welcome Chief Jan Phillips from Shelbyville. Welcome, Jan.
Welcome. Anyone else? Representative Vital.
Well, I know we paid a lot of credit to our law enforcement. I want to appreciate them, but I also appreciate all our airport CEOs here, and I know they were
Absolutely.
recognized. But I want to especially thank April Cameron.